Hey everyone, welcome back to Breakthrough Innovation, where we uncover what it really takes to lead change, create value, and build what's next. I'm JL Heather, one of the co founders of Centered, which is a firm that helps organizations navigate complexity, spark creativity, and unlock the full potential of their teams through innovation coaching and strategy. Now, most organizations say that people are their greatest asset and then fund their development last. It's a gap that shows up everywhere in turnover numbers, installed innovation pipelines, and in leaders who can't figure out why their teams aren't moving faster. Getting this wrong doesn't just cost talent, it costs the strategic agility that every executive says they need, and they need it right now. Sandra Coker has spent over 2 decades solving exactly this problem as the founder of the Human Power Solutions and author of the international bestseller People Profit. She's helped mid sized organizations turn employee development from a line item expense into a genuine engine for growth with a proprietary model that ties learning directly to business outcomes. Today, she's going to challenge how you think about the connection between your people your people strategy and your bottom line, and give you a framework that you can take back to your leadership team this week. Sandra, I'm really excited to have this conversation. Culture is one of my favorite topics to talk about. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me, too. Appreciate it.
Awesome. So, Sandra,
Yeah.
you work with CEOs, COOs inside a lot of different mid-sized companies, every day.
Mhm.
I'm curious, when you walk into an organization for the first time, what's the most common disconnect you see between what leaders believe about their culture and then what's actually happening on the ground? Like, what is the gap there?
Most of the time, they're like, our leadership needs help. I'm like, not really. It's your systems need help. So I think that's the biggest disconnect is that when we go into talk with our CEOs and CFOs, we're to mid to enterprise at this point. Yeah, do you know what's happening on the floor? Do you know what's happening with the boots on the ground? And are you making it easier for those people to do that work, or is it so hard? And the disconnect is that leadership makes decisions without having a clue what's actually going on.
Yeah.
So
There,
we
there's
start from
that
the bottom up.
saying, uh, what is it? The axe forgets, but the tree remembers, or the tree. I'm
Oh, okay,
forgetting,
yeah.
butchering the saying right now, but I've always loved it because it's that idea that that axe
Yeah,
it takes 100 swings a day, 1,000 swings a day, and moves on. Every tree
yeah,
it hits, though, really feels the effects. So I love
it
that
does. It
idea
does.
that leadership maybe doesn't necessarily understand the impact that they're having. Can you give us
Yeah,
some
and we come
examples of
in,
what that looks like?
sure. You know, when I go in to meet with a client and I'll ask them, what's going on the floor or what's going on out, in the retail stores or wherever it is. We do everything from manufacturing to retail to, CPA banks, whatever.
Yeah.
So a lot of times it's, they don't understand that the processes a lot of times that they put into place are the things that are holding the employees back. So, for example, if I went into a very large company. They asked me to help them with their client engagement because they felt like their techs weren't doing a good job. So they said, we really want you to come into a focus group and just work with our techs and really figure out a great training program for them. So when I went in, back in my mind, I'm like, this has nothing to do with the tax. This has everything to do with the internal processes. So that's where I led them. So I led them to actually, they are doing a great job and they're very professional, but they don't have the information they need when they get in front of a client because internally the process is so broken.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of times, so when we talk about people profit and we talk about, what that actually means, it actually means that what is your boots on the ground, feet on the street work experience? Because
Right.
those are the people that are interacting with your clients and creating customer satisfaction, client loyalty, and referrals. It's your profitability.
No, I love that. It reminds me of a time we were doing some work with Ford, and we had their leadership team go out and actually get their own oil changed. And I think it was really eye opening for them about what that process actually entailed, what they were putting customers through. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
it makes me think of that kind of the whole concept of the undercover boss.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Yeah. One of my favorite shows, by the way,
I
but
can
it's so
imagine.
scary what happens to people. But I think a lot of executives just don't they just I don't for whatever reason, they just don't see it. And,
Yeah,
when we're talking to the employees, we're like, "Guess what?" I'm like, "Your CEO gets up in the morning, has coffee, lets their dog out, and plans dinner with their family."
yeah,
Like, we're all human beings. And so that's the other thing that I like to talk with CEOs about is like, don't just because you have another dollar or zero next to your name does not make you any better than anybody else.
right.
Period.
Well, and I think it is
You know?
interesting to me, and I'm curious kind of what you think about this, that there does seem to be this disconnect that goes both ways, where not
Yep.
only does the CEO not really understand exactly what are the people on the line doing, but do you see the opposite problem as well? And I think that's kind of what you're talking about. Like, how do you handle the
Yeah.
opposite problem? That might be a better way to say it, where helping
Yeah.
people understand what is the CEO actually doing? Because I think there's a lot of misunderstandings about that.
There really is. And even in my company as I'm growing, we're there's a few more layers coming in and I'm not as available as I used to be. And,
Right.
it's hard for me. But bottom line is, I make sure that I'm still a mom, still a grandma. I have my dog, my chickens. I love to make sourdough bread. So I really feel like if you're as a leader, you really connect, you have to try to connect with everybody. However
Right.
you do that, and if you're a CEO of a large company, maybe you're sending out a video thing of like, "Hey, how was your weekend? This is what I did," or
Yeah.
anything that you can do to humanize yourself. Because I think executives get a really bad rap. Some of them deserve it. I
Sure.
won't lie,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of really good executives out there that are doing really good work, and really caring about their associates. And I just feel like more people need to do that.
Yeah. Well, I think, you talk about caring about their associates. And I think one of the common ways, that we try and show that care is through personal development and helping them grow.
Yeah.
And the form that normally takes is some kind of training program. And I know, like, from our experience, that training rarely is effective on its own, right? Because people go to the
Yeah.
training, they love it. Maybe they go to a workshop, they love it, and they feel good for a week, but nothing ever changes.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at designing these programs, these engagements, how do you actually design them in a way that's going to move the needle? Like, do you use training? If you do, like, how do you build on it? Like, what is your approach to gaining that engagement?
Yeah. Great question. And I actually don't believe in training. So
Perfect.
my line is you train dogs. Like I've trained my dog to go outside in the morning. We develop people. So everything that we're doing is professional development. So when you're thinking about development, it's not an overnight thing. It doesn't happen in a
Right.
bubble, and it certainly doesn't happen in an 8 hour workshop. So the way that we design all of our engagements is we look at the entire system. So everything from the executive leadership all the way to the boots on the ground, and we'll look at where the gaps are. And sometimes it's a language gap, so we'll bring in our English as a second language partner. Sometimes it's a hey AI, we really want to integrate it, so we bring that in. We'll create an entire plan from sales, marketing, communication, all of it for that company, so that we are in there for a year and a half, 2 years. And then what we do is we do what we call nugget learning.
Yeah.
So if let's say we have an 8 hour train the trainer module or something like that, we'll be in there for 4 weeks, 2 hours for 4 weeks, and we do every other week. So that's that four. Now that 4 sessions turns into 8 weeks. We have 2 months of touches with
Yeah.
this. So it's actually transformational learning. So we don't do anything that's like if I get calls all the time. Hey, will you do this retreat for us? And I'm like, and my line is, and I'm a little fresh. I'm from Boston. Like I'm like, hey, you know what? We're not a one hit wonder. If you want us to do a retreat that follows through with another with a full plan, 100% we'll do a kickoff like
Yeah.
that, and we'll do a fantastic job. But if you're looking for us to come in and do a 1 day thing where you're going to rah rah everyone, go to someone that you know is going to charge you $10,000 and nothing's going to happen. And I
Right.
think that's the other thing for us is we keep everything so reasonable. Uh, every time I've owned a business, it's keeping things reasonable so that you're not pricing yourself out of the market and you're maintaining this relationship. So my clients have been I've been in this business for 6 years. Prior to that, it was with my last company for 4. I've had companies for the last 10 years. They have
Yeah.
stuck with me all the way through because I'm not pricing them out of the market. We're providing really good value and you're getting results.
No, I think that's great. And I think some of what you're hinting at when you talk about this approach is probably the level 5 learning model. Uh,
Mhm.
and I'm curious, maybe tell us a little bit more about that because I think a lot of leaders tend to look at training, kind of as a cost center. And I think what you're kind of saying is they should probably change their perception. So, what is the model and how should they change their perception?
Yeah, like level 1 is your e-learning. Here you go, sit in front of a screen and let's check that box, right? So that's level 1. And
Yeah.
then it rolls into, level 2 could be a mix, a hybrid, mix with, a live, maybe a workshop follow up. Level 3 is where you're getting that 1 or 2 days of workshop, 4, a little bit more follow-up, and 5 is where you really are fully engaged. And L&D, in my opinion, should not sit in HR, it should have its own seat. And I'll tell you why, because when we talk when I'll give you like, I was just at a client the other day and working with them on their train the trainer program,
Right.
and I'm like, if you're treating your employees like commodities, if you're in manufacturing, it's like, oh, this person might make it, this person might not make it, like whatever. It takes 5 months to break even on an employee.
Yeah. The
And
replacement cost is huge.
that's so much money out the window.
Yeah.
So when we think about, when you think about having a seasoned staff, uh, people that are there that love being there. They're innovative. They come up with different ideas. You're not spending all your time training the new person on the new skill because they're growing, and it's the level of quality that's going to come out, and just the level of satisfaction and your company's reputation, and so much of it. Your profitability is just huge.
No, and I love that. I think I'm always shocked how little understanding there is around what it actually costs to
Yeah.
replace an employee that leaves. And then maybe to take it even further, what the cost is you pay when you have an employee that stays but kind of gave up. Right. So like there's
Yeah.
two costs that people just never seem to realize they never show up on a balance sheet or a
Yeah.
P&L or anything like that. And I've heard to replace an employee costs anywhere from 150% to 300% of their salary. I don't know if that's quite right
Yeah.
anymore. Yeah, it's depending on what
Yeah.
they are. Like, that
Yeah.
just kind of blows my mind that people are so willing
Mm.
to accept that
Yeah.
cost without ever really thinking about the alternatives for just helping those people grow.
Well,
Uh,
it's because it sits and I love HR, but it's because it sits in HR. They
yeah,
don't have visibility on the money, like all of that stuff. Like it's just the visibility. It's
right.
nobody's fault. Like my husband works in manufacturing, and he's an area director for large manufacturing firm, and they have something called NISO. It's a new employee kind of thing, and new people come in and they're paid, they're 40 hours Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 for a full week. And he's like, "And some people don't last a day." It's I'm like, he's like, "It's so much." He's like, "Sandy, it's so much money." I'm like, "It is so much money."
Yeah,
So part of it is in vetting process. A lot of it's a social onboarding, like how you make these people feel,
yeah,
it's having a good structured, and I will use the word training because if it's skill-based training, and that's what training is,
yeah.
having a good training program for new employees coming in so they understand their jobs.
Yeah,
So
and maybe the more
anyway,
general way to say it is just how are you setting people up to succeed?
yeah, pretty much.
No, I love that. And I think, maybe to pivot the conversation a little bit, I think, we talk about the way it exists today, but when
Mhm.
you look ahead, like it only gets more complex. Remote teams, AI reshaping roles. We're up to what, 5 generations in the workforce right now, I
Yeah,
think?
almost 6. Yeah, we're getting
Almost
to 6.
6. I mean, it's the complexity is just escalating. I'm curious, where do you see the biggest opportunity for organizations to invest in their people?
I I think it's in the generations, like you were just saying. I think right now, our generation, I'm assuming you're about my age, we're not the nicest bosses. We're just not. I know it's the way we were raised, like
Right.
buckle up, buttercup, and come along for the ride. Whereas
Yeah.
like my kids are in their 20s and, my son has a mental health day. I'm like, what is that? But it's part of the fabric, right? But this Z generation coming up,
Yeah.
I think these guys are they're hardworking and they want to move and so and there's definitely been a shift to work ethic and not being on social media and
Yeah.
connection and all of that stuff. So I think companies have got to start to recognize, yeah, we've got some issues. We all know what the issues are with the millennials. Not all, but we all understand that. We
Yeah.
know what Gen X's issues are. This
Yeah.
Z is going to transform everything because they are digital natives.
Right.
And AI and the alpha generation, the one coming up after them, are going to be pretty much AI natives,
Right.
right? They're not going to know life without AI. So I
Love that
think
game.
that's kind of I know, my favorite thing. I love it so much. But I think that's the thing that's the biggest opportunity for most of our companies right now is kind of understanding how to harness that.
Well, and I'm curious, like, I've been in I've run departments, I've been in leadership positions, I'm self-employed now, run my own company. There's this temptation to just kinda normalize and say there's gonna be a single approach, but the way we talk about generations, that feels like even as I say it, that already kinda feels like the wrong answer for a lot of reason. Like, how do you span those generations effectively and lead well without
Well,
making it unfair or creating resentment, or, like, how do you do that?
I think so much of it is in the communication. So, is really talking about the types of communication. One of the things that we often talk about with our clients, and I'm sure you do too, is when you're leading someone, or when you become a leader or manager, whatever you call it, whatever you want, but
Right,
it's actually discussing with the person coming in, what's your communication style? How do you like to get feedback? How do you
right.
like to be trained? Like what's your modality? And I think we've got to ask as a leader, you got to ask more questions and not assume. And the other thing as a leader, like just because I like to tell you what to do, if you need written word, I have to adapt my style to meet how you learn. And that I think is one of the things that we're seeing.
No, I love that. I
Did that
think the
answer your
communication.
question?
Yeah, no, it does, because what I hear you saying is, like, you have to communicate to the person. You
Yeah.
can't be general in your communication. You can't normalize your
Mhm.
communication across all of them. And I think where my head goes as I was listening to you is, and maybe this is a good thing for leaders to think about, it is, yes, your communication style has to change, your expectations don't. And I don't know if you
Yes.
same thing. I think so often the expectations are the things that get dropped. People do a couple things. One, assume the expectation has been set when it's not. And then
Mhm.
two, set the expectation and then care too much about the how. They don't give people the autonomy to meet the expectation in the way that's right for them. Am I thinking about that right?
I think you are. I think we've got to be a little bit careful there. If you're in a skill-based business, let me take manufacturing, for
Yeah.
example. There's certain things like when you come into maybe a company's been around for a long time and you're given you're a leader, you've been there for a while, you know all the ins and outs and the shortcuts and the tribal knowledge and all of that.
Yeah.
That's not the stuff that you want to be teaching the person coming in. You want to teach them to the standard, right?
Right.
And they'll figure out the rest of it. So sometimes there is times where it has to be done a certain way in
Right.
order to make sure that they understand the path to the quality. So if they do veer off, they understand the
That's
why.
fair. Yeah.
I think but other things, like if like my son, for example, he's working for a really large company, he's doing really well. He loves AI and he uses it to kind of like it's the stuff that he creates. It blows my mind. He's 26. He's like, Mom, I created blah blah blah. And I was like, I don't know. I'm just trying to reset my email so it doesn't sound rude,
Yeah.
you know?
Absolutely.
but
Yeah.
it's a way, so, the methodology, they don't care, what he's doing. He's coming up with the right stuff. And if he's got the skill set to do that. So I think it really does depend on so much of this workforce right now depends on the person's capability and your capability to be flexible.
Yeah.
That being said, be that word accountability, it has to be there. But
Right.
along with the with accountability, must be clarity. If
Right.
you're not clear what your expectations are, then the accountability goes out the window. So,
Well, the accountability is on you at that point.
yeah,
Yeah. No, I
yeah.
love it. Sandra, I could keep going on this for a long time. I love these types of conversations. Unfortunately, we do have to
Me too.
wrap up. Before we do, if someone wants to work with you, what's the best way for them to reach out?
You can go to our website at hpowersolutions with an s.com. I'm all over LinkedIn, Sandra Coker, so you can't miss us there. And then we do have a book called People Profit on Amazon. So
Awesome.
feel free to
No,
buy.
I love it. I didn't read the whole book, but I read some of it, and I was really intrigued. So it's probably one of those I'm putting on my reading list, and you'll probably end up seeing it somewhere in the background at some point. So
Sounds
fantastic
good.
book.
It's just
Sandra,
full of
thank you.
stories. It's just full of stories. So
Well, I think parables, stories, like that's a great way to learn. So I love that.
yeah, thanks.
So, Sandra, thank you so much. This has been a great conversation. For everyone else who's made it all the way to the end with us, while you're down there leaving that 5-star review, we'd love to hear from you in the comments. What are some of the challenges you're facing? Where do you see culture uh, mismatch between what leaders are saying and what's actually happening? I think that's a pretty common experience. So, I think people are going to have a lot to say. And then, lastly,
Okay.
if you know someone who's struggling, introduce them to Sandra, spread the wealth, share the knowledge. And then, yeah, we'll see you all next time on Breakthrough Innovation.
Thank you so much.